And in all this, I do think of Jesus on the cross, asking, my God, why have you forsaken me? I think how many times I've asked that when faced with the immense weight of all this suffering and the powerlessness it is so common to feel when faced by it. Here I turn to theologian Jürgen Moltmann, who was conscripted into the German army at the age of 16, and in the midst of the Allied bombing of Hamburg asked, where is God in all of this? Where is God in this suffering? After being released from a POW camp, he spent his life trying to understand the suffering he was part of perpetrating and paradoxically also a victim of. I think here of the violence of conscription in Russia, in Ukraine, and elsewhere. In his book, The Crucified God, Moltmann looks to the crucifixion as a moment of joint suffering that gives us grounding for action despite all hope, despite our despair. In what he calls effective hope, we do not flee from the unbearable pressure of the present into a consoling better future, but draw the other human future into our present and live already by it. In other words, our hope when it comes to suffering is not that we will be able to escape it by means of consoling lies about the true nature of our government, our true treatment of refugees, or our true role in systems that perpetuate war and exploitation. Our hope is also not that we will be able to end suffering forever. Indeed, we may only be able to reduce it by what can feel like a defeatingly small amount. Our hope, or mine at least, is that when we feel confronted by the suffering of victims of state violence, this felt pain becomes a ground of truth and clarity about the system that causes it and the alternative futures that we can bring into the present through collective action. I don't pretend to know what that looks like for each of us standing here today. For many, it might look like the fight for refugee rights on this continent. For some of us, it might look like confronting the warmongering and climate change that creates refugees. For me, at the moment, it looks like doing what I can to push back against expanded state violence in the form of anti-protest laws and standing in solidarity with those who fight for First Nations justice, climate justice, and refugee justice. And I'm grateful to each of you for doing what you can in the struggles you're a part of. And I think, finally, again, of Jesus on the donkey, Jesus in the temple. I think about what it means to confront state violence and the impossible questions of how murder and suffering can be made right. I think of the missile casing with 4 Our Children written on it. And I think in the midst of the drums of state violence, militarism, interpersonal violence, dehumanization, everyday cruelty, God, give us hope to dare the counterbeat. Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks so much, Anastasia. All right, our final speaker now is Amber Flom, the Senior Vice President from the New South Wales Teachers Federation.
Thanks, colleagues. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and of course extend that respect to all our Aboriginal friends here today. And I also want to thank you for how you've shown us how to welcome migrants and refugees across the centuries. We have learned from you, and we continue to stand alongside you as the union movement, as you have faced your battles of racism, as you continue to endure those struggles. We stand with you in the union movement. We are also proud as the Teachers Federation